Chainsaw Man was likely one of the most anticipated shonen anime I have ever seen in online spaces, and on release it seemed pretty popular. While there were some misgivings about the direction and the CGI, which we'll get into later, the anime had extreme hype work done for it in the couple of years building up to its release. This isn't to mention that Chainsaw Man with no adaptation was a smash hit, hitting 6.4 million copies in circulation by its 10th and final volume for Part 1. Animes are usually made to be advertisements of the source material, so a manga performing this well without an anime advertisement is pretty good. This brings us to the anime's release. Did Chainsaw Man fail? This question presupposes the idea that we know what failing means, so let us dig into that a bit. Ideas about adaptation quality are very subjective, so I'll leave that till the back half of the video. Until then, we will be talking strictly about data. Generally, when people examine the success or failure of an anime adaptation, people turn to Blu-ray sales. If you watch television in the United States, you are familiar with the endless, and dear lord I mean endless, amount of advertisements. However, that isn't really the case in, well, most nations, but also including anime. Western television relies heavily on live viewership and selling ad space, whereas anime, from my understanding, tends to turn to merch sales, stuff like clothes or figures or, Blu-rays. This is also because the way anime is produced utilizes production committees, investors who are trying to get a return by selling merchandise. Another metric to examine is how well the source material benefited from the anime advertisement. If you take, for example, My Hero Academia, when the anime is premiering, you will see a noticeable spike in volume sale count. If we examine it through these lenses, did Chainsaw Man's anime boost manga sales? Well, yeah, but not in the way you might think. Despite releasing during the holidays and during the anime, Volume 12 actually saw a decrease in sales compared to Volume 11, only selling 284,000 copies compared to Volume 11's 328,000. It did not experience anything near the level of something like Jujutsu Kaisen's massive bump in success from its adaptation, but at the same time it's unfair to compare a lot of things to JJK or Demon Slayer level success. Not every anime is going to see such explosive growth similar to these two titans, but compared to a lot of the forecasts and hype for CSM's release, the numbers aren't as thrilling as one would expect. So let's go back to our initial measurement of success, Blu-rays. And Chainsaw Man sold a whopping 1,700 Blu-ray discs. Wait, that's not a lot, is it? Comparing it to an anime that premiered in the same season as Chainsaw Man, Bocchi the Rock sold 16,000 copies in its first week. That is nearly 10 times the amount of copies of one of the most hyped up shonen in years. Of course, one might argue that Bocchi is cute girls doing cute things, so it's not fair to compare the two, so let's examine multiple shonen anime in their first weeks. For comparison, the two heavy hitters of Shonen Jump, Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen, sold 41,000 and 35,000 respectively for their first anime volumes. Of course, you might also say it's not fair to compare it to those anime as they are the two current titans of anime, so let's look at Spy X Family, which sold 10,000 copies in its first week. Chainsaw Man sold even worse than My Hero Academia's not very well received 5th season. At some point, we have to stop comparing it to other anime and recognize that clearly something has gone wrong. 1,735 sales for one of the most anticipated shonen in years is not good. Blu-rays are some of the most profitable forms of revenue for studios, with a solid 55% of net revenue per unit. Additionally, CSM Volume 1 was also packaged with tickets to a Chainsaw Man voice actor event this May, with a capacity of 8,000. We can infer then that sales of at least a few thousand were expected, but filling up an 8,000 ticket event would be more than just a few thousand, especially considering not everyone who got a ticket would be able to attend. We can likely assume that MAPPA had expected Chainsaw Man to sell at least 10,000 Blu-ray copies. Now, one might astutely point out that Blu-rays and worrying about DVD sales is sort of a thing of the past. We live in an unprecedented era of information sharing, with anime being more popular than ever overseas, anime movies being a big new thing, and more importantly, streaming. Nearly every source you can find will corroborate that streaming is growing faster than Blu-ray discs, which are in fact declining. However, this massive increase in numbers doesn't necessarily correlate to more money. The thing about anime streaming is that the profits are split up in multiple ways, and in 2020, the production only saw around 37.4% of the profits from streaming. To make matters worse for other anime, this would usually be split up among the committee. One might point out that MAPPA is the only one on the committee, so technically they are making all that money, which is true. However, once again, they are the only ones on the committee. It's kind of a double-edged sword here. because it means that the entire bill has to be footed by MAPPA, meaning they are likely not happy about the performance of the series here. Remember, the amount made from streaming was dropping around 2 to 3% per year, and that chart was last made in 2020. And if we follow that trend, which admittedly has not a lot of data, 3 years later, that 37% could be down to 35 or even 34%. But why? Why did people not get out and buy the Blu-rays? As you can see in this chart, thankfully posted by Saturn Eclipse, there are a few bars here. The blue bar is streaming, which as you can tell has skyrocketed since 2013. The pink bars are Blu-ray rentals, and the brown bars are Blu-ray sales. As streaming grows, you'll see that Blu-ray rentals fall off because people have no desire to go out and rent them to watch. You could just watch them on, I don't know, Netflix or something. However, what has more or less maintained its position since around 2011 are Blu-ray sales. These are people that are buying your anime to build a collection to support a series they love. This is the more hardcore fan base, something like manga readers or of course just big fans of the anime. If Blu-ray sales have maintained a similar position for over a decade, why did CSM perform so poorly? Just to reiterate, when I say poorly, I don't mean that the anime sucks or whatever. I enjoyed it for the most part. I just mean that for the stake MAPPA held in it, the amount of hype they had generated, and the absolute powerhouse of a brand CSM was before its adaptation, it should have performed better. This part of the video is where the facts sort of end and we start to form interpretations or possible reasons as to the bad turnout of CSM. Most of this will be reliant on speculation, and there's 3 primary things we could talk about. 1, the content and production of the anime. 2, the director. And 3, how this is all misinformation and actually MAPPA's shop numbers will change everything. Some speculate that the content the anime covers didn't do Chainsaw Man any favors. And while I don't think that this would be the cause of the sales being that low, it probably didn't help. To be frank, making CSM 12 episodes led to it covering the series' least interesting content, basically stopping right before one of its most well-regarded arcs. The thing is, it kind of pigeonholed itself into being a one-core anime due to its director's goals, which is a topic we'll get into later, but to summarize, Chainsaw Man's director had desire to make the anime more cinematic or realistic. When you do this, however, you are drawing characters in constant movement or always outwardly expressive. When you have things moving this fluidly or believably, that is ambition that comes at great cost. It gets even more complicated when you realize that CSM was produced by Keisuke Seshimo, the guy who was also in charge of Jujutsu Kaisen, which led to a lot of borrowing of JJK staff who, while CSM was being produced, were actively working on Jujutsu Kaisen 0. This is something MAPPA is notorious for, raking their employees over the fucking coals and taking up a billion series that they don't have the time or people to work on, leading to tons of overlap and overwork. With less time, they needed more people, and with more people, you get less fluid work, and with the age-old phrase, too many cooks in the kitchen, especially as they all try to adapt to the realistic style that the director was going for, leading to a bunch of corrections. We have a short time frame, and multiple corrections needed to fulfill this realistic style, and more hands getting added to try and get things done. CSM's production was a nightmare, and it becomes clear why 25 episodes is not something they would ever shoot for. Something that also could be noted is that when CSM's finale was about to air in literally a few days, they were outsourcing in-between frames in the thousands to get it done. We can't really go further without going in depth on the director. Japanese fans do not like this motherfucker. Chainsaw Man was directed by Ryu Nakayama, and he had a very specific vision for the adaptation. He stated things like, quote, "I want CSM to be more than an anime," and that, quote, "I was convinced if I could incorporate the essence of something realistic or cinematic, it would be good for the work." His idea of elevating the source material was not to turn it into an anime, but something more live action, hence the realistic art style and movement we discussed prior. Along with numerous production issues, people were not at all happy with CSM looking like that. There is speculation that Japanese fans were very unhappy with his comments about making it more than an anime, as if anime isn't good enough. That's just speculation though, I'm not sure if that's true or not. Additionally, in Fujimoto's volume covers and the manga's official coloring, it makes use of a whole host of colors. Chainsaw Man's identity was nothing even close to cinematic or realistic, often using funny poses or gags that simply lost their identity when adapted to the cinematic style. I'm not the only one who thinks this either, as there have been tons of Japanese fans unhappy with the direction of the anime. Chainsaw Man is bizarre, it's surreal. Not to say it doesn't have its human elements, but the official colorings we have help sell the vibe and tone that the manga sets out for, and the anime's muted color palette or feeling of losing its character pissed a lot of people off. Japanese fans have made their voice loud and clear. clear, starting petitions to completely remake the anime with a new director, and regularly questioning or even attacking Nakayama on Twitter, spamming 1735 in his mentions as of late. A 12-episode anime covering the series' least interesting content, coupled with production issues due to the director's vision, with said vision being heavily rejected by his most hardcore fans, you can probably see why Chainsaw Man sold only 1,735 copies. But wait, what about the MAPPA store? Surely, MAPPA must have sold way more copies on its store because you get more goodies, so it's a better deal, right? Well, that's to assume that the average consumer even knew about MAPPA's better deal, or even cared or wanted the better deal. And that also assumes that the 1735 copies figure doesn't already include the MAPPA store. If they do have a separate number, let's be generous and personally believe that it's maybe double the sales. That's still not really the number we expected CSM to pull off. In short, CSM did pretty poorly for one of the most anticipated anime probably ever. It performs well in streaming, but Blu-rays are where the money's at, and it shows dedicated fans rejected the adaptation. The realistic style was not popular, and led to a multitude of production issues, and all that leads us to 1735. Despite this gloomy number, however, you can still expect a season 2. As MAPPA seems heavily invested in the CSM brand, and it wasn't a total flop, it just wasn't the smash hit that people expected. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe for the funny YouTube algorithm. You can check the description down below to follow me on Twitter, where I'm objectively correct all the time. You can also join my Discord, where we talk about My Hero Academia, ReZero, Jujutsu Kaisen, and stuff like that. And you can also now become a YouTube member, which basically just gives you access to behind-the-scenes content, a little badge on comments, and live stream chats, and access to some emotes. Only do so if you want to support the channel, though. But that's about it, though. Thank you for watching. See ya.